Welcome to I Hate It Here, the podcast for HR and people professionals, making the hardest job in the world just a little bit easier. I'm Hiba Youssef.
In my early career, I thought you come in, you do a great job, you do good work, and obviously people will just see that and recognize that, and you're golden. You'll get promoted, you'll get raises, and that is not how it works.
It's not how it works.
It's not how it works.
Welcome back to your favorite podcast hosted by your favorite HR person, me. I'm Hiba, your host and resident hater. And every week I dig into the things that make work, well, chaotic. And this season we're tackling firsts because every career has those moments that fundamentally change how you see the work, from maybe your first investigation to your first layoff to the first time you realized a policy, a process, or even a playbook isn't going to make any decision any easier. And today's conversation is about one of the hardest firsts, the first time you realize that doing the right HR process still potentially ends with someone losing their job. My guest today is Stacey Nordwall, and we're talking about the first time she had to step into what was essentially an HR business partner role before the company even had one, and work with a manager to coach an employee through a serious performance challenge. But the situation wasn't that simple. More on that shortly. And if you don't know Stacey, you're in for a treat. Stacey is the VP of People Strategy at PIN, where she created the 50 over 50 Women in Tech list and the Guide to Inclusive and Equitable Workplace Communications. She's also the creator and host of the Toot or Boot podcast, one of my favorites. Stacey is passionate about creating inclusive workplaces where people can thrive and helping people teams evolve to meet the new world of work. She holds an MA with honors in counseling psychology from St. Mary's College of California and a BA in psychology and communication from Stanford University. Stacey, welcome to the pod.
I'm sorry I made you read so much bio stuff. That seemed like too much.
I actually loved it, and I didn't know about your background in psychology. Like, I've known you for how long, and I did not know that about you.
Yeah, there was a brief period of time, well, actually, even from undergrad, that I've been interested in psychology. I thought I could become a therapist. I went through the training and then I was like, oh, no, I'll pass. It's a little bit too hard.
I'm so thankful for all the therapists in the world, because I would do the same. I'd be like, I could be a therapist. And I would take the class and be like, absolutely not. I cannot do this job.
Yeah, once you actually, all of the, I think you're like me. You love reading, you love learning, you do all that part, and it sounds great. And then you get in the rooms with people and start navigating some really gnarly challenges, and it's like, whoa. I think we have a lot of emotional drain that we experience in HR, and that's like 10 times more as a therapist. So it is not an easy job.
I could never. I'm so thankful for all the therapists out there. Thank you for keeping us all on track, because that is a job I just think is impossible. And also we should pay those people more.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because they're taking care of the mental health of so many of us, and we desperately need it, because you and I both know a lot of issues outside of work always end up manifesting somehow at work.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So before we get to our topic, every season I pick like a fun teaser question. Honestly, I should pick like more fun and unhinged questions. This one's like kind of tame, but I think you'll really like it. What's something you believed about work in your early career that you've completely unlearned?
So in my early career, I thought you come in, you do a great job, you do good work, and obviously people will just see that and recognize that, and you're golden. You'll get promoted, you'll get raises, and that is not how it works.
It's not how it works.
It's not how it works.
No.
And it frustrates me when I see people still give that kind of advice, like and it's so unrealistic. It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't. It's like as much as I hate to say it, it's also like getting promoted and getting raises and all that stuff is also sometimes like a political who likes you the most game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it has a lot more to do with, the advocates that you have, the sponsors you have, the manager you have, than
Ugh.
it is just about the work that you're doing, because you can do great quality work and those things aren't going to happen for you without some of those other things.
Yeah, it kind of makes me sad. But that is not our topic today. This- that's an episode for another day where we could get into like all the lies we were told about work. That could be a really
Oh my
fun episode
God.
we do someday together.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Because we have been taught so many lies. And every time people are like, but doesn't it work like this? I'm like, no, it really does not.
No.
It does not work like that.
No.
Um, for today's topic, we're going to talk about the first time you had to step in and be an HRBP because there was no HRBP.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think the situation, I won't spoil anything. Okay, let's just go. Let's start at the very beginning. Take us back to that moment. What was happening at the company where you had to step into this HRBP type role before it even existed?
Yeah, I mean, I think for folks who have been in HR roles where it's like they're first in or one of the first few in, they're at early stage startups, things like that. It's just that they want to keep the HR teams lean as long as possible. And so you're doing every possible role, you're doing every single thing because they are really going to wait until it's beyond broken
Yep.
before they start hiring some of those more specific roles. So really it was just a matter of having been one of those first in people at an organization that had been growing and scaling, and they just really had not built out the HR team in any way yet.
Yeah. So they were like, Stacey, you do it. No, but like to be fair, I've also have had this experience where I was the second HR person, but they were like, no one's really doing all the HRBP work, so you can do it. And like
Yeah.
suddenly overnight, I became an HRBP, and I was like, I feel like this is a whole other job, and I'm
Yeah.
still doing six other things that are also different jobs at this company, like manager training and offboarding and onboarding and company retreat planning. It is that early stage startup though vibe. You know, I love it. I've worked at like four, and I'm just like the chaos is fun because you get
Yeah.
thrown into like every situation potentially you've never had to do before, but it gets interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
so take me back to that situation where you had to intervene with the employee. What did the situation even look like when you first got involved?
So I think this is another one of those like firsts within a first, I guess. Where
Inception.
yeah, it is. We're incepting ourselves. That you are told about this situation, right?
Hmm.
The manager comes to you, whoever comes to you, and it is presented to you as though like there is still a possibility of this working out, right? And then you start actually having the conversations a little bit more. You get involved and talking to the employee and talking to the manager, and what you realize is like you're not being brought in at the beginning, you're being brought in at the end.
Always.
And that the situation, yeah, exactly, as we have so often experienced. So at that point, I'm thinking initially I'm walking into something where there is a real possibility for change and for this to kind of be recovered. And what I'm realizing is like I've been brought in and it's a Hail Mary, and the manager is like slightly willing to see if it will work, but has kind of already made a decision in a way. And, and the employee is really still trying to, I think the employee wasn't even really keyed into that this is where things were at,
Yeah.
which we also tend to learn as we are going through these situations, that what the manager says and what they say they've said to the employee is not what the employee has heard.
Mm. This is like one of my least favorite situations. And it is also like the most common situation
Yeah.
because you
Yes.
just get into it and it turns out into like a game of he said, she said, or a game of I said that, but then the employee's like, well, I didn't hear it that way. And then I have to ask, like, did you follow up in writing? Like, what is the situation? I also, biggest pet peeve is when we end up in a situation with no context. So, like,
Mm.
you enter the situation thinking, like, oh, HR is intervening. Here's, it's a performance issue. Like, I'm going to work with the manager, the employee, get it sorted out. And then as you actually enter the room and get more details, you're like, oh, this is not at all what I thought was going on. I hate
Yes.
those because I'm like, I could have been 10 times more prepared.
Yes.
had someone just given me these details, and now I'm like, I kind of look like the dummy because I'm like, wait a minute, now there's this thing going on and another thing going on, and then I'm getting this from the manager and this from the employee, and then we're stuck in the middle, playing the
Yeah.
role of the HRBP in these
Yeah.
trying times. Okay, but
Yeah.
seriously, did you feel at all prepared in your career to even handle that situation at that time?
I mean, well, as you just said, first of all, the situation that you walk into is generally not the situation you think you're walking into.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Just be prepared. Be prepared.
Yeah. So I think initially I was scared because the stakes felt very high. You know, when you're doing something for a first time, like it is scary and you don't want to mess up and you don't want to
Yeah,
be the reason that someone's losing their job or something doesn't go well. Um, and so I definitely felt scared. But I also in the back of my mind was like, you've been in this world, like you know the conversations that need to be had, you know all of the things in theory that need to occur and what you need to do. So I did not feel, I did and didn't feel prepared. I
yeah,
guess
yeah,
some of
yeah.
both.
It's so funny. If you watch Big Brother, which is a reality TV show where they lock a bunch of people in a house, honestly, it's one of my favorite social experiments because it's wild watching people's like microaggressions on full display, and then you can like really see a lot. Because I'm like, oh my god, I know what's happening here. Do they even know? Anyways, but one of my favorite the tagline of the show is "Expect the unexpected." It's like every season they try to surprise us with a twist or something. I'm like, you know what? No, that is HR's motto. Screw you, Big Brother, and your 25 seasons. It's actually HR's motto, expect the unexpected. Because that is just, there are times where I could like prepare everything perfectly. And just like you said, we walk in and it's a completely different scenario is at play.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you think you're walking into, I'm coaching a manager through a performance situation, right, with an employee.
Hmm.
What was actually happening in this situation?
I mean, I think that's what it was in essence. You know, it was a salesperson's role. It was pretty clear from hearing from the manager, you know, they're not reaching out to people, they're not following process, they're not making sales, you know, like it wasn't shocking. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
nothing too interesting there. I think it was more so that like I walked into that situation again thinking that this was an early intervention and getting the impression that there was in the manager's mind still room to coach, to really work with this
yeah,
person,
yeah,
and then realizing as I'm talking to them more so that that's not the case. And then it's always rough when you get, you know, yeah, you get brought into that situation and it's a completely
yeah.
different, you're there to kind of close things out. Like the manager wants to say that the person is going to be let go, but they really are bringing you in to be the bad guy.
Ugh, I hate that type of conversation. Also, it's an early, like you said, it was early stage, one person doing an HR job. Like it, at that point, like, did you even have things set up like PIPs or performance process or anything?
I don't think so.
That's that's what like tends to it only takes like one of these, right? Where you're like in the
Yeah.
early days, someone's like, I want to fire someone. It only takes like the first time for that to happen for you to be like, we don't even have a process for this. So I'm just gonna build
Yeah.
the whole process while it happens. Because like
Yes.
now we have like
Yeah.
a fully documented process. Like if someone were to say I have performance issues, like they have to come talk to me. We have steps clearly laid out before we even get to a this is a more serious like PIP or termination style conversation. And
Yeah.
it's the reason we had to set it up, right? So like the first few times we didn't have it. So I was like, I'm gonna have to build this. So
Yeah.
it's interesting that you're walking into this and you're like at the end stage when you think, oh, I'm
Yeah.
going to be at the beginning of the stage. So when you started coaching the manager, like, how did that even go?
Yeah. I mean, I think you alluded to this earlier where you a manager starts telling you from their perspective where things are at, what's happened, what they have communicated. And when you start having the conversation, especially because I would get in the room with both of them and I would realize either the manager hasn't said it or the employee hasn't heard it or both. It is clear to listen to them that they are absolutely not on the same page. And even if the manager did give feedback, it wasn't clear enough, or the employee might have heard it but not realized, oh,
Yeah.
they don't interpret it as this
Yep.
is a performance problem, right? They're just like, oh, they're just kind of giving me some feedback. And there was a complete disconnect, and I think that's really like that first thing where you start to, because I wanted to give the manager the benefit of the doubt, and they're telling me all of the things. Oh, I
You're
told
so
them this and
kind.
this and this, and you're like, oh great, you're doing such a great job.
You're you're so kind. I'd be like, show me, prove it, dial me into the conversation. Just kidding. I don't know why I just used that voice. No, but that's we should assume that they're doing the right things. We know they're usually not.
I mean, these were in my more naive days, let's
Yeah,
say.
been there. Trust me.
Yeah. But I mean, then you realize over time you have to dig into that more. You have to really say, okay, cool. Can you show me an email that you sent them? Where have you documented, all of those kinds of things. But yeah, getting in some of those first conversations with both of them, I realize, okay, the communication hasn't been there. The feedback really hasn't been there in a way that is clear, and that the employee understands where they're at in this kind of process, and like how serious it is.
Yeah, the serious piece I think is like lost on some people because I would say like the average person is like scared to have a hard conversation.
Oh
And
yeah.
so then when they get into it and it's like, I need to tell Stacey she's doing a bad job. It's like you're so scared of doing that you like soften it and you're like, well, you're doing so
Yeah.
great at these things, but there's like this one thing that I just wish and I always say like, don't shit sandwich it. Like when you're giving the
Yeah.
feedback, you just be honest with the person and be like, hey, you're really not meeting my expectations here, or
Yeah.
you're not doing a good job. But managers so often are like too scared to do that. But I also think like they don't even have the emotional capacity because our average manager is like so at capacity that then
Yeah.
to also figure out how to approach the conversation in the right way, I think takes like so much emotional energy that they just like
Yeah.
can't do it.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
they come to us and they're like, I want to fire someone. And then it's like the cycle of hell really starts then. It's like, no, you cannot fire them. Prove to me you gave them this feedback.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. And definitely like, as you were saying, this was like so early in your career, maybe earlier in your career. These conversations I would have like butchered early in my career. I think it took me some like actual time to figure out how to effectively manage performance style conversations.
Yeah. Well, I think also, I mean, generally, I don't think without, unless people are going through training and actually having practice conversations, they're just not conversations people have very often.
No.
So you're not going to be good at them. So I think there is an element of, and I've gotten into this, later in my career where if a manager needs to give somebody feedback, I'm like, let's role play it.
Yeah.
Tell me how you're going to give this feedback. What are you going to say? Because otherwise, to your point, people will lessen it, they'll soften it, they'll kind of not be as clear and direct as they need to be for employees to really clock in, like, oh, I'm getting it, I understand it's serious, I understand what you're telling me I need
Yeah.
to work on.
Yeah. I was telling someone the other day, like, how often in your life, just outside of work, do you like stop to like give someone feedback about something? It's like not a natural thing. You don't like tell your partner, like, hey, I hate the way you load the dishwasher. Or maybe you do, actually. Maybe you should. But I was just like thinking, like, how often do you tell your best friends? Like, unless you have a very different, like, I have a very different relationship with my best friends where, like, if something is going sideways, we will talk to each other about it very directly and be like, hey, I really did not like that you did this thing and here's how it impacted me. Like, I thankfully have like very emotionally aware friends that have those conversations, but uh, we're not ever taught to have those in our lives throughout growing up in school. So like you get to the workplace and it's like now you have to have really tricky conversations about people's livelihood, like the way people can pay for things. And then the stakes are almost so high for us as HR and also the manager and the employee.
Yeah.
It's like high
Yeah.
stakes no matter what. You
Yeah.
mentioned too, when you were telling me about this first time, that the employee also had medical needs and
Yeah.
really relied on the job.
Yeah.
How did learning that maybe change the way you approach the conversation?
Yeah, I think, I mean, again, when you're doing something for the first time, I think you really like you take it on a lot. You take on the responsibility of it a lot. Uh, you want to make sure you're doing a good job, and you want the most positive outcome, because otherwise it feels like you have failed. You failed yourself, you failed the people involved, and so you're taking it very much to heart. And then, as you said, when it's a situation where, because we're in the US and we don't have healthcare, people's job is their healthcare. Somebody losing their job could be life or death, right? Like,
Yeah.
it could mean
Yeah.
that they don't have access to medications they need, procedures they need, whatever it is. And so when there's like that extra element added on top of it, and I think it wasn't, literally life and death for this person, but it was significant. It was a very significant concern for them. You're trying that much harder to make a situation work.
Yeah.
And I think it made me even that more resistant to recognizing that it wasn't going to work. And so uh, I might have like stayed with it longer, because it was like, this is my first time, can't mess it up. This person has real needs. I mean, we all do. So
Yep.
that
Yep.
is not different.
Yeah.
Um, but really just trying so much harder to make it work, and not kind of seeing that really ultimately, like, the person was not going to be successful. And so that wasn't going to change.
No, it also, sidebar, I hate that our healthcare is tied to our employment. It feels so icky. And for like my whole life, I never questioned it really until I like entered HR. And then I was the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
I like, what? Why? And then you like look at other countries. Like obviously in Europe, taxes are higher and very different, and they've set up their systems very differently, and they have less land to cover and humans to manage within their individual countries. But I hate that someone loses their health care when they lose their job in this country. It just feels so unfair.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's like the extra way. I know you've talked about this before. As HR people, think about this a lot, that when you are essentially in a place where there isn't a lot of safety net, and that taking away somebody's livelihood could put them into medical debt, make it so that they're not getting medications they need, make it they all of that kind of stuff. Like, you have to take the responsibility of that. You have to feel the weight of that,
Oh
because
yeah.
how detrimental it can be. And it really makes me wonder what it is to do HR in countries where that isn't the case, where you don't have to have this kind of sense of like, okay, well, this could completely devastate this person,
Yeah.
right? To just be like, oh, you're still going to be okay if
Yeah.
you don't have this job. And if that wouldn't even make us a little bit freer to move around in the job marketplace, if we didn't have that kind of need to like hold on to a job because we had no alternative, like, what would that look like? Anyways, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah,
But
that could be honestly, a whole other episode. We
yeah,
should get someone from Europe on here so they could tell us, anyone in the European countries, like, what is it like when you don't have to worry about the employees, entire livelihood? Like, is there more fluidity in the talent market? I wonder, like,
yeah,
we should do that on another episode. Because now I'm like really
yeah,
curious. I'm going to go Google this afterwards. But no, I mean, like, it does really sit with you. I'm like at a level where
yeah,
someone the other day on TikTok was like, I once knew this HR person who loved firing people. I was like, loved firing people. That's my least favorite part of the
no,
job, because of all of these things that go into play with it. It's like, one, I care about my coworkers as humans. Two, like,
yeah,
I'm lucky I work with people that I genuinely love and adore. So I'm like, even then that makes it even harder. And then you're thinking like, what is this person's financial situation, which we know the average American lives paycheck to paycheck, doesn't have enough money in
right,
savings to cover. So, like, you're running through all of that as HR. And so, when somebody on TikTok was like, I knew this HR person who loved firing people, I almost commented, like, that person should go to hell. Like, Like, that is not something we should love
Well, that
doing. Like,
person is a sociopath.
yeah, there's nothing you should love about terminating someone,
Yeah.
even when I have not liked the employee, or like, let's say they have done something not nice to me. I'm still like, that is a human at the end of the day. And like, I can't lose my humanity as HR if I'm gleefully terminating people. Like, that is wild. I did go through a phase when I first started terminating people, when I did my first HRBP style role, where I would terminate the person and then close my computer and like cry. Like, every single
Mhm.
time I would cry. And I was just like so sad that this was part of our job, and I know it's part of our job, and it still makes me emotional to this day. And I keep telling myself, like, the day it doesn't make me emotional will be the day that I shouldn't do this job anymore.
Yeah.
That's because
Yeah.
something in me has died. and I should and I should go find that thing and resurrect it, because
Yeah.
there should never be gleeful about this. It's just a bad situation for everyone involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thinking back to the terminations, like, we often, and HR's role, we often get like framed as like very procedural. Ugh, struggling to say that word. We're like, we have a process, we follow the process. It is policy. Like, here are the things we do. But moments like the one you were in and ones I have been are like deeply emotional.
Mhm.
What goes through your mind when you're like navigating those competing realities where you have a policy and a procedure you need to follow, but you also are having like a very emotional reaction to the thing that's happening?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, one thing, it makes me think that when you are creating your policies and procedures, it's good to have those, right? Like, it's good to have something that can guide you, that you can go back to. And I think it's also good to be be kind in those policies and procedures. Like, you can write policies in a way that they are like kind of the most punitive or trying to catch people out the most, or you can write them in a way where you're trusting. And so I think that, you know, thinking about it from that perspective, trying to have those more trusting policies and procedures to fall back on. I mean, ultimately, like, it's still hard. It's still hard because of all of the things that we've talked about. And you really want to do the best thing for the person and the best thing for the company. Sometimes those aren't the same thing. And so, or
Mm,
they might be the same thing, but like, it might be that that person needs to kind of, you need to have a real conversation with them about, you aren't going to be successful here. And I
yeah,
know how hard that is and how much you want to stay, but it's not going to work.
yeah,
Right. So,
yeah,
yeah, it is always a challenge. It's always a challenge.
yeah. I feel like in my body, there's 17 different personalities. Wow, that's a really weird way to describe that. But it does feel like at times, like balancing the policy with the emotions that you're feeling, that you know the employee's feeling, and then you're like, they're in discontent with one another. And like, I always say, like, I was saying, like, within me are 17 personalities, because I just feel like I'm then now feeling all of it all the way through, if that makes any sense. And it is
Yeah.
hard sometimes. I have to remind myself, like, okay, you were HR Hibba, like, get your HR hat on. And there are other times where I'm like, you could be a human today, like, be human Hibba. So it's just a way of saying, like, I think oftentimes we have to enact things that are just in conflict with like how we personally also feel about the thing, either because of the policy, because someone made a decision we didn't agree with, or because that's just the way it is. And I think that emotional toll is why the burnout on this job is so high.
Oh yeah. I'm absolutely.
I'm like,
Absolutely.
I'm tired. Some days I'm like, I can't string together a cognizant thought. Like, all I can do is go read my fanfic. Like, I can't do anything else. Just- I just like read my romance novel in peace and be left alone. But like,
Yes.
it does
Hmm.
make I wish there were more studies on like the burnout of HR people, because there was that one that LinkedIn released where they basically associated the burnout with like the job change level that HR people were having. So like, HR people were changing jobs more, and
Mm,
they were like saying like part of it could be burnout, like they're tired of the place they're at, so they're going to go work somewhere else. I'm like, that doesn't, like, burnout doesn't resolve itself when you leave an environment. So
no.
I if you heard it here first, someone please do a study on burnout on HR people, because I do think the burnout and emotional toll this job takes on a human being is like much higher than the average job.
Yeah, I mean, I think they do that. They have studies like that for other caring jobs like nursing,
Yeah.
and I think that it's not, or therapists, right? I don't think it's to the same extent or necessarily for the same reasons, but I'm sure that there have to be some similarities there.
Yeah. The other big thing I have to ask, I hate asking this question, but I'm going to. Did you ever feel the tension between your empathy for the employee and the responsibility you have to the organization?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. This is what we talked about before is that uh, when I know that someone is in fear of losing their job because of not having access to health insurance anymore, we understand how heavy that is. And of course, I'm going to feel for the human who's sitting in front of me. Right. So I know that I have a responsibility to the organization in that, like, it is a business. We are trying to make sure that we have people in roles who can do the role. I understand that is part of my job. But clearly, like, you see this person in front of you struggling, you're going to try to do everything you can for them. So it's a rough position to be in, and I think to your point earlier about, like, HR
Yeah.
people loving firing, but nobody loves that experience. That experience sucks.
I was like, who is that person? Like, genuinely, like, out them, say their name, because like they should not be in HR anymore.
Really, really. I mean, there's no way you're not feeling for a person in front of you when you know that, you know, that it's going to have a major disruption on their lives.
It's wild to think that you don't actually, we're not having those thoughts and feelings. Like, genuinely, I really want the person to like tell us who the person who loves firing people is. 'Cause I'm like, that is not a thing that we love. And it's like, it's the I always joke, like, the duality of women. Like, I can read a romance novel and then I can read a really serious, like, nonfiction book about like war. Like, right?
Hmm.
There's also the duality of HR. We can like hold
Yeah,
space and have empathy for the very real human that is in front of us, that we know this is going to like dramatically change their experience, and also care about the business. I think where
yeah,
things get really uneven really fast is when you go to one side over the other. When you're
yeah,
always like, I love being pro employee. I don't think there's anything wrong, but when you're always pro employee and you're not talking about the business, you're missing opportunities. If you're always at the business side, you're missing opportunities to be a better HR or company for the human. So I think like those two things have to be held in like perfect balance. And there are times where I want to act with my empathy and not the business. And I have to remind myself, like, can't do this because the business, this is not how we run a
yeah,
business, right? So I
yeah.
think like those conversations with yourself, with your team are healthy to have. And that discontent, I think, or not discontent. What is it when like two things, maybe it is discontent, will always be there. I don't know what word I'm thinking of. I don't, Stacey, I don't know what word I'm
Dissonance.
thinking. That one, maybe that one starts with a D. Can I get a phone or friend? Okay. So the outcome of this particular situation where you were navigating your first time in an HRBP role with a manager who brought you in at the ninth hour at a situation that was more far along than you ever thought, then the employee discloses like medical situation. I need this job. I need this healthcare. When in all of this did it become really clear that the outcome might eventually be a termination?
Yeah, I think we had set up kind of, I think it was maybe weekly check-ins or something like that, but we did have meetings regularly. We were communicating. I was meeting with them both weekly, communicating with them separately aside from that. And after, I don't really, it was a while ago, so I don't know how long, but I think at some point it was like, okay, this is clear that things aren't improving.
Yeah.
And I know that I wasn't brought in early. So this performance problem had been going on for months before that. Even with the intervention, it's still not
Yeah.
improving.
Yeah.
So at that point, it was like, okay, let me think about what I can do to create the best exit for this person.
Yeah. I mean, and how did you prepare yourself and the manager for that possibility?
I mean, the funny thing is, right, I think the manager was ready for that
The
from the
it,
beginning.
yeah, yeah. Then you came in and you're like, hold up,
Yeah, I think that they were
slowed it
already
down.
there, and it was more about me kind of working through it and being like, okay, well, let's make sure. Did we really do all of the things that would have given this person an opportunity to be successful? We need to try those things first. We need to make sure that we've done those things. And once we had, it was kind of working through the like, okay, the mental and emotional part of what is going to happen to this person, and then saying, okay, but yeah, the exit is what it's going to have to be.
Yeah. Were were you at all like, were there any moments where you were like, oh, I don't know if this is the right thing?
I mean, there's what's right.
Honestly,
Uh,
good, excellent question. That's a whole other episode too.
I mean that it was the right thing for the company for sure. Um, was it the right thing for the person? I don't think the person was going to be successful. So in ways, yes. I think one of the things that I think about when reflecting on it, and I've been lucky to work at companies where they weren't just US based. So I got
Mm,
exposure to how things occur in other countries. And then comparing that to how we do it in the US. And in the US, we don't have a lot of employee protections, right? We don't have a lot of safety nets. And so when you experience how it is in other countries where it is maybe a bit more in favor of the employee in terms of the protections, they have more protections. You think about like, okay, well, I don't have to do the US legal minimums here. we
yeah.
we have some room to play. And I think in other countries, my experience has been, in Australia and the UK, there is a bit more of a perception of like duty of care for an
Mm,
employee.
yeah.
And so when I think about that exit in particular, I think we did things to really exercise a duty of care towards that person and not just do what we could have done and been like, okay, bye, which, you know, legally we could
Yeah.
have.
Yep.
But we really tried to create an exit package for the person, a timeline for the person that was going to allow them to have like insurance for the longest period of time and all of these kinds of things. Um, then it felt like this is as right as these kinds of situations can be.
Yeah. It's so funny. Like, what is right could be a whole nother episode because it's like to answer that is shockingly hard.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
shockingly hard in this job. And like, I'm always
Yeah.
just like, keep to my North Star. And like, if I'm following my values and doing my best, like it will be as right as I can get it.
Yeah.
But oof, that is like when you start getting into the right and wrong conversation, that can be tricky because like that's different depending on who you ask sometimes, which feels kind of wild. Something as simple as the things we're dealing with
Yeah. I
depends on
mean,
it.
I think that's kind of
This
the
job's
interesting
fun.
thing about HR is like things just generally aren't black and white.
Yeah.
So
You got to love the gray area.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do thrive in ambiguity, but that gray area is never ending because then you have to be like, well, the law says this, but
Yeah.
technically you could do that, but then this would be the risk of this, and then this could happen. So it's like, you're right. We just got to be really good at the gray area, which
Yeah.
is hard for a lot of people, honestly.
Yeah. It is.
Like,
Yeah. It
it
is.
took me a while to like get comfy with it too. Like I liked sometimes I used to like my clear little rules and like my lines, and now I just feel like I let go of that a long time ago. And I'm like, we'll figure it out when we figure it out because that's just
Yeah.
life right now. There's the only way I can deal with it. Um,
Yeah.
when you're thinking back on this experience and like your work now, how did this experience kind of shape the way you approach performance management today?
I mean, I think, yeah, it was really informative, right? Because it did give me some of those early signals of, what we've talked about,
Yeah.
managers don't always give clear feedback, even though
Yep.
they tell you they do. They don't always make their expectations clear or communicate them clearly or well. So, really encouraging people to do those kinds of things, to have those tough conversations earlier on, because that, if in that scenario, maybe it wouldn't have mattered. I don't know. But if I had been brought in 6 months earlier, maybe it would have made a difference if we had started having those tough conversations, had been more clear. At the end, it's really hard to, because the paths have diverged so much, it's hard to really affect change. So, yeah, earlier interventions, better regular feedback, clearer feedback. I think that's all been part of what I'm really advocating for managers to do now.
I mean, I love that. But that first experience, the first time you do something, I feel like always sticks with you no matter what, because of like back to what I said at the very beginning, you learn so much.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
also like probably don't even have an opinion on the thing you're doing for the first time until after you've done it and you're like, oh God, no. And I'd never do that again. But like now at this point, like performance management to me is I can do it with like my eyes closed, but those first few times where I had to deal with the really tricky performance issues and it was just like a gray area and I didn't know where to go. And it felt like more of like a choose your own adventure than something I like clearly mapped out or knew how to respond to. Oof. I
Yeah.
don't, I forget about that. These days I'm like, I know what happens next.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the thing is too, I mean, in this situation, it was a sales role, and those tend to be a little bit more
So clear. Yep.
clear, right?
Yep.
If the performance is good or not. But it's often not so clear. Like there are
No.
plenty of roles where what good performance looks like is not clear or is not clearly defined within an organization. And so, yeah,
The
again, another episode.
the not clearly defined, I'm like, did you tell somebody what good looks like? And when a manager's like, no, I just don't they know? And I'm like,
No.
no,
We all have different definitions of things.
no. How
Yeah.
would you know? So I think that is also just really interesting. So when I read your bio, I learned that you had that background in counseling psychology. Did that at all come up in any of this? Like, were you like, oh, I remember reading this about this and that?
I mean, I think in a way, like one of the great things about having gone through that program is that it really, you're using therapist skills, you're learning to listen, you're learning to evaluate, think about, reframe, say the thing back to the person to make sure that you're understanding, to make sure that you're making them feel heard and understood. And so I would say in that situation, I would hope that the person felt that they were really cared for and really heard and understood. But maybe not because they were losing their jobs. So they really, it was still devastating for them. So I would hope that it was something that was done in an empathetic and compassionate way, even though it wasn't a good situation. Um, yeah, and I think that that has, when you have that experience of, it is practice of having tough conversations, of helping someone clarify what their own thinking is on something. So, I think it has generally, even though I was not cut out for the therapist life, I do think it has helped me in the HR life.
I would agree. I honestly am like, can I take a class on this? Like, not become a therapist, but like maybe could, because everything I've like kind of learned, I've just like kind of learned on the job or like by reading books. And like, there's probably more I could be set to learn about these situations. I just try to approach them like, if I was in this situation, how would I want to be treated
Yeah.
with kindness and respect? And so the second a situation ends up in a different place, I'm like, oh no, this is not how we do this. But you heard it here first. I'm going to go take some counseling psychology classes. I also am not cut out to be a therapist. Thank you again to all the therapists out there. I love you. Okay.
Mhm.
For HR professionals who are facing their first situation like this, like say they're walking into their first performance conversation where everything is sideways and you learn so much more that you didn't even know was at play. What do you wish someone had told you before you walked into your situation?
I think it would be like, don't trust anything you've been told.
But honestly, so fair. So fair. Literally,
Um,
unless it's in writing, it did not happen, is what I like to say.
I mean, yeah, because, you go in, you really need to hear, obviously, get all the information you can, hear from the manager, hear from the employee, really to get that understanding of what actually has been said, what actual feedback has been given. Um, and I think also, like we were talking about, it can be such a heavy thing. It can be hard to create this boundary when you know the impact that it could have on somebody's life, and it can
Yeah.
be a very big emotional weight. So I think there is also, what I would tell people is to make sure to also have that boundary for yourself, and give yourself some grace and be a little bit self-protective, because you need that as well. Like, you need a little bit of a boundary there for your own emotional health.
Yeah. I need to be better at that boundary setting. I'm working on it. I always say I'm working on it every year since like 2023. I think I've been saying I'm working on it.
I mean, it is a tough one because we're dealing with humans all the time. We're dealing with emotions and people's livelihoods, and those aren't light things. So
No.
it's a challenge.
Is anything light about this job, Stacey?
Oh,
Exactly. That is a great answer because no, because nothing is light about this. I think, I don't know, maybe it's like the external pressure of the world being so chaotic
yeah.
and not fun. So
Yeah.
that then all the pressure of knowing what we know about average Americans and the spending and everything like that, I feel like our job is. I asked this question like seriously to my community recently, where I was like, "Did you all think 2020 was harder or 2025?" Because I thought 2025 was just an awful year. Like maybe it's because I'm so far from 2020 that I don't remember how bad work was in 2020. To be clear, like I had to go to a neurologist because my arms went numb in 2020 because I was typing for so much that they thought I might have like pinched a nerve or had something more serious going on. So like
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
2020 was bad for me, but I thought 2020 was actually worse. 2025 was actually worse because it just felt like the speed of everything happening was like light speed. And then the world is not in a good place right now. Majority of the world
Yeah.
feels like it's not in a good place. And so
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I feel that because I think in 2020 there was more of an idea of kind of a communal experience.
Yeah.
And in 2025 it was just like dumpster fire, and it didn't feel like people were working towards a similar goal, or yeah, and it did feel like there was just every day waking up to, what am I going to wake up to?
Yeah. At least in 2020, we knew we were going to wake up to a global pandemic that was still happening. And yes, we did lose a lot of people's lives. And I'm very sorry if anyone listening lost someone they loved due to COVID, because probably every single one of us knows somebody who did. And like that was like a very serious time, but it did feel like we kind of like knew what the state of everything was kind of every day. I don't know. Maybe that was just me. But every day I wake up in 2026 and I'm like, I can't fucking believe I just read that headline.
Yeah.
Can't believe that just happened. I can't believe this just happened. So it's definitely proving to be a very like heavy time. So that's why I loved your advice of like set your boundaries and respect
Yeah.
them.
And take up embroidery.
I love that. Are you embroidering?
I am. Yeah, there is something, I think a lot of people are going back to, like, the old timey hobbies and things that they do with their hands.
Love.
Um, and the thing about repetitive motion, it calms the nervous system. So there's doing that
Oh,
repetitive motion, and then also the sound, like the sound of the needle kind of poking through and the thread pulling through is also like pretty calming. So I think take up an old timey hobby, start pickling things, or I don't know.
does my reading count as an old timey hobby or no?
Sure. If you do it by candlelight.
I'm not allowed to light candles in our home just because I feel like I'd be the person who would forget them and then
Okay.
I don't do that. But like can I read by I have a light that goes around my neck that like
Yes.
you click on and it's like two little bulbs and you
I
can like,
use that for my embroidery.
wow. So you and I are just living parallel lives.
Yep.
You with the embroidery. Okay. Maybe I will. I tried to pick up knitting, but I was not good at that because my mom was like a big knitter and my high school best friend just like knits like items for our other friend's baby. And I'm like, that is so impressive because I just don't have that skill.
Yeah.
I have the scrolling skill. I have the thumb that can scroll.
Maybe crochet would be better for you then.
We'll figure. You heard it here first. I will be picking up an old timey hobby. I'm sure I will notify all of you in the most annoying way possible on every single social media app I can find. So stay tuned for that. Stacey, for people who want to get, first of all, thank you so much for spending so much time with me today. I get to see you later today too, because we have like another meeting.
I know.
And I still have to catch you up on all my life things, but that's not for this podcast. That's personal stuff. Sorry. For those that want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. I'm there quite a bit. And you can find the Toot or Boot podcast on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts.
For a while, I was calling it Toot and Boot, and I thought that was kind of funny too to myself. I was like, we're doing both.
Yeah. I mean, we usually do both, actually. So
I need to come on. Can I come on next season? This is me making my plea to Stacey to come on her podcast next season. Yes.
Absolutely.
I can't wait. You make me laugh in so many ways all the time. I'm like, people are like, you're so funny. I'm like, me? No, there are way funnier people than me. Stacey is one of them. I have to tell the story and then we can end this episode, but I will end on this like fun story of us at Transform last year. It was the first time we had met in person. First of all, I didn't even realize it was you. That was funny. But I'm bad when I'm so bad when it's like connecting.
Was it you that was like, oh, here, take our picture? And I was like,
yes.
Oh, hi, I'll take your picture. I do know you though, also.
And then I shared, and I was like, that was Stacey. It's hard when like your picture and then you see you in person. Like at that point, I don't think we'd ever been on anything virtual with each other either. Now we're friends. Okay, I made up for it. I said sorry. But
that was hilarious.
My favorite bonding moment wasn't that one. Was the one where we went to like a main panel session and both of us were standing there in the corner talking to each other, like while the keynote person was talking, which is not great behavior. I understand, but we were like whispering underneath our breath. Then finally we both looked at each other and we were like, why the hell are we here? Neither one of us is interested in this person. So we both just like left and went outside and talked to each other instead.
Yes.
And I just remember thinking it was like such a scene out of a movie because we're both like whispering underneath our breath. And then we both just look at each other and we're like, why are you here? And then I'm like, why are you here? And we're both like, why are either one of us here? And then we just left. And I was like, this is the dream friendship where you just like look at each other and you're like, oh, neither one of us, then why are we here? We'll just leave. It was a good time. It was a good time. I'm sad I won't see you this year, but I will always catch you on the internet. And maybe I'll come to Phoenix at some point.
Yeah, not during the summer, but otherwise, yes.
Or now, because didn't you just say it's like 90 degrees or something?
It's going to start to get,
Okay, I'll catch you in December, I guess.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you so much, Stacey. This was so fun.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was great to chat with you.
Yay. Thanks for tuning in. Keep up with all the latest HR resources by subscribing on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen. And if you love I Hate It Here, tell an HR friend. I'll see you next time.